Spider-Man and Wolverine, some of Marvel's most popular heroes, heck, some of the most popular heroes ever created, potentially might be here if the villain is right anyway. They might potentially be some of the worst heroes in the Marvel universe. And honestly, Dread Shadow here to the main big bad might actually have a point. Now, if you're new and you need a little bit of catching up to do, essentially what's been going on is something known as the Janus Directory leaked, and it was a super file containing a bunch of secretive information, one of them being a video of the death of Spider-Man's parents, Richard and May. The culprit in the video being Wolverine. Now, this of course sets Wolverine and Spider-Man to have to fight against each other, which a bunch of stuff happens in between, but eventually it leads to Teresa Parker, you know, Peter Parker's potential sister, which will be called into question a little bit later, her arriving to finish the job Spider-Man couldn't, to kill Logan. I did skip over a lot of stuff, yes, but all this is directly influenced by Dread Shadow, a new addition and new villain directly tied to Spider-Man and Wolverine's history, which cutting back into said history years ago, we see Wolverine and Spider-Man fighting a specific villain, the Enforcer, who isn't really too important or has any notoriety, but he is essentially a mercenary or assassin for hire, which in this flashback, as Wolverine and Spider-Man just effortlessly overpower and defeat him, Wolverine is getting ready to go in for the kill shot to finally take him out, but Spider-Man, of course, not wanting to just, you know, execute the villains in broad daylight, stops him, which this is going to become very important later on. For now, though, we move back over into the current present after, you know, Spider-Man's sister just straight up shot Wolverine with a special bullet made out of the Muramasa blade, which essentially just dulls his healing factor. Now, in the case of Teresa, who believes she just killed the man who murdered her parents, her and Peter's, she reveals how she even got to this point and recap everything from her own perspective. She says 2 days ago, the Janus Directory leaked to the dark web, and in the file was a video, the video of their parents' last moments, of their plane crashing, and somehow in the video she saw herself on a plane, her as a baby, then somehow even surviving the crash and then being rescued after, which already draws red flags in that case. So of course she goes to get her revenge and take out the person who murdered her parents in the form of who she thinks is Wolverine here, yet even in the present, one bullet still isn't enough to put Wolverine down, which I don't get how not. If it's made out of this material that could dull his healing factor, then it should just act like a normal bullet to a normal person, you know? Like you shoot someone with a bullet point blank in the chest, they're realistically not getting back up, yet Wolverine does all the same here, which forces Spider-Man to have to physically restrain Wolverine from him just lunging and killing his sister, so it puts him in a hard spot. Does he take the side of his friend and hero and ally who he has known for years and worked aside along, or his own potentially flesh and blood sister, who he's not as close to, but you know, that's his sister? Thankfully for Peter anyway, that's a decision and situation he isn't going to be in for long, as just then everybody is interrupted by the introduction of the main big bad, someone by the name of Dread Shadow, who has orchestrated everything, essentially being the mastermind between putting Wolverine and Spider-Man against each other, organizing their villains to attack, and everything in between, even the introduction of his sister. Now the only real question left here is why? Why go through all of this trouble for Wolverine and Spider-Man specifically? But with his arrival, he goes on to say, Spider-Man once more trying to turn Wolverine away from murder, without regard for the consequences. You guys go to bed each night, sleeping sound, believing you did good, that you're real heroes. But I showed you otherwise. You're not heroes. You're just irresponsible men without honor, just killers by other means. Going on to even complicate the matter even further, saying that his own daughter is dead because of them, which just throws everybody for a loop, because as he continues on saying, years ago when you fought the Enforcer, the guy from the beginning in the flashback, he killed hundreds of people over his career, and the two of them at that point in time, Logan specifically, had a chance to end him, kill him once and for all, but Spider-Man would never cross that line, would never do what was truly necessary in taking out evil for good. And even on Wolverine's end, even though he would have killed him, he believes Wolverine is nothing more than just pretending to be good, to be a hero, when truly he's just a monster, showing mercy when he would rather claw and kill and defile anyone he gets the chance to. Even worse than that, afterwards, when they gave the Enforcers to the authorities, they sent him to the Raft, which is essentially just a giant supervillain prison where they house metahumans and whatever have you. But eventually he got out and went back on another crime spree, the same murder spree that eventually took the life of his own daughter. And it gets even more interesting when we find out this guy, this Dread Shadow, before he was this persona here, he was a SHIELD agent before SHIELD collapsed and is no more now, but a few years ago before they collapsed, they came in possession of the Janus Directory first. And yes, while SHIELD disbanded, him looking through the directory gave him everything he needed to know about Wolverine and Spider-Man specifically, including the curious detail about why Spider-Man was so obsessed chest with Richard and Mary Parker. It wasn't hard to put two and two together and realize that Spider-Man is the son of these two previous S.H.I.E.L.D. agents themselves. Of course, he's just explaining all of this while he's just beating everyone here. I mean, sure, Spider-Man is still weakened from his injuries, even Wolverine now from the bullet and the Muramasa blade weakening his healing factor, but Dread Shadow continues to get the upper hand regardless, even going on to further say how his entire plan, him working with Bill Branscombe to provide Wolverine with the fake info, and even getting Teresa, Spider-Man's sister, against them, it was just all so easy to put these so-called heroes and their morals against each other. But eventually, once they are able to incapacitate him momentarily, Spider-Man using his webs, Wolverine grabs him once more to go in for the kill shot to take him out once and for all. But even still in this, he says, go ahead, or try to, you'll just be proving my point. Of course, Logan himself is confused about what point is he even trying to make, because it is true, Dread Shadow here, even though he's trying to make a moral argument, he is very flawed, and his own argument doesn't even work in reality, but we'll get to that in a second. He goes on to continue saying that you think you guys are heroes, that you can make these life and death choices, but you can't. That these heroes, they're just citizens like anybody else. Third party will give them the right to be able to play God with people's lives, even if they are villains or not. But even in this same moment, Spider-Man convinces Logan to not just skewer him and kill him in a moment, but they'll handle this the right way. The same thing that happened with the Enforcer earlier, that they'll just send him to prison and handle this the way it should be. And even through all of the scuffle and Dread Shadow gearing up to go another round, it isn't Spider-Man or Wolverine who's able to take the final shot on him. No, it is none other than Spider-Man's sister Teresa stabbing him through the chest with claws of her own before pulling out a gun and just firing point-blank shots to finish the job. Her reasoning being, okay, sure, you wanted to show them that they're not heroes, that's fine, but I never was one. Though even still, he just starts to slowly get back up. Like, I don't know what it is with being shot or stabbed through the chest and just living through it, but it still happens right here. He continues on saying that they're just also predictable. It's quite pathetic, really, and how they can't change their true natures, the same natures that he has shown them. Spider-Man, in his case, being a hero unwilling to do the quote-unquote right thing in the form of putting down the villains for good, because if he sees that the cycle is broken, he sends villains to prison, they break out, and continuing to harm and hurt others, he does nothing but continuing to perpetuate this cycle. And Wolverine, on the other hand, being no hero at all, just a monster pretending to be a hero, and is happy to participate in all of the death, murder, and bloodlust that he always engages in. Though even as he tries to make his escape, we see that his technology is damaged through the giant scuffle and battle, and instead of just teleporting him away like his tech usually does, it instead just implodes in on himself, blowing him up, or seemingly so, because as you know, if there's no body, we don't see his charred remains, then assumingly so, he's just out there, just teleported away, who knows where, and will show up again at a later point. But for now, for all intents and purposes, he is essentially gone and dead. Now here's the point where I find most interesting throughout this entire comic is the hero, Spider-Man and Wolverine, coming to a realization about Dread Shadow's points, because a lot of it is kind of hypocritical and just isn't based in reality, but some of it is kind of valid about the points of heroicism that these heroes have. Because as Peter goes on to say that sure, he won't miss him, but that doesn't mean that he was wrong altogether either, because he tries to think about the consequences of what they do as heroes, as people, as, you know, super powered beings. He tries to think about all the people in harm's way. And maybe Dread Shadow had a point. Maybe they are playing God when they have no right to do so. Because when they do slip up, make mistakes, do something that is less than ideal, they should be accountable for them. But the thing with being a superhero like that, they have no government or higher authority to watch over them directly and monitor exactly what to do, when to do it, like a police officer or some other law-abiding entity would be. Peter continues saying that he sees things from his perspective. Of course, his sister chimes in, still saying that they aren't responsible for the direct death of his daughter. Spider-Man, on the other hand, says yes, they are. That's what being a hero means. Being responsible directly for your actions and what you try to do, even if intentional or not. Wolverine obviously doesn't see it this way, because in his mind, being a hero means stepping up when guys like Dread Shadow put innocent people in danger. And sometimes, yeah, that requires them to play God. Dread Shadow just didn't like the call they made in terms with Enforcer, sparing him instead of just killing him on the spot. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was the wrong call, which is a really interesting point when you think about it, because it's a nuanced sort of situation, because they can't just go and kill every single villain. And even if they did, they are still human, they make mistakes. What if they kill someone who they thought was bad or did the crime when it really wasn't, and it was just an innocent person? Who is going to step up and hold them accountable? Maybe other heroes, maybe the government hunts them down, but it's just another step that complicates things. So, you know, each side has a little bit of validity to it, though Dread Shadow being the one that's obviously more in the wrong, because using his own logic, he was playing God himself, putting innocents in danger, wanting to kill Spider-Man and Wolverine Wolverine for what they did, at the end of the day, no matter what he tried to tell them or what moral mission he thought he had, he was really just seeking revenge and was in grief for the death of his daughter, and set out to take it on Wolverine and Spider-Man, who he thought might have been responsible and could have prevented it, which ties up one of the loose ends and plot points here. But now, cutting over a week later, we still have to deal with the issue of, what exactly happened to Peter's parents, because Dread Shadow said that he compromised everything and set this up. So what truly happened, was Wolverine responsible? And with Peter using the resources at Rand Enterprises, he was able to finally restore the footage and clean it up, and to finally see what truly happened and if Wolverine is to blame at all. With the truth being that no, Wolverine wasn't there to kill his parents or even did the killing, mind control, or other motive, what have you. If anything, he was here to protect his parents, as they did have a working relationship at the time, which clears Logan of any wrongdoing. The second thing is that there was no mention or scene or any proof that Teresa was there as a baby in that plane crash that she previously thought. Because yes, while it was mentioned having to get back to a boy, Peter, their son, their child, nowhere was she seen or mentioned at all, leading her to conclude that, maybe everything she knew was a lie. She's not even related to Peter in the first place. And that the Chameleon was right, because previously in another series, the Chameleon sowed the seeds of doubt that, she isn't related to the Parkers at all. If anything, she is the daughter or related to Chameleon himself, and that everything she knew was a lie. And there's a lot more that she is unaware of with her lineage. Now, is this true or not? We don't know, because the Chameleon is like, why would you believe the Chameleon? His whole thing is being deceitful and untruthful. So in my opinion, this just leaves it more up in the air if she really is the blood sister related to Peter or not. But at the very least, they have closure now, meaning it's over. But Peter doesn't really think so. As he says, Kraven, the other villains, they're still out there, even though Dread Shadow, their leader or mastermind, is presumably dead. That doesn't mean that the other villains finish putting his plan into action, as you move over and see just that, with Kraven, Doc Ock, Omega Red, Mysterio all grouped together to form their own little team. Not the Sinister Six, but something new and a new purpose to take down Spider-Man and Wolverine permanently and once and for all. But that's something we won't see here, as this video and issue comes to a close. If you have enjoyed, leave a like or subscribe if you are new and want to see more content just like this. As always, this is AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.